Don't go to the closing tomorrow. Check the offshore accounts first. Your daughter's trust fund. Sophia, it's already gone. I stared at the man sitting across from me in the corner booth of this downtown cafe, my untouched latte growing cold between us, Mr. Rivera. I hadn't seen him in 5 years, not since Daniel told me his former business partner had retired to Arizona. But here he was, older, grayer, with worry lines carved deep into his face. I don't understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What closing? What are you talking about? He slid a manila folder across the table. The Harbor Point development. Your husband is signing the final documents tomorrow at 10 a.m. When he does, the last of your assets will disappear into shell companies you don't even know exist. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Bank statements, property deeds, account transfers, all with Daniel's signature, all dated within the last 18 months. Why are you telling me this? I asked. After all these years, why now? Mr. Rivera's jaw tightened. Because 5 years ago, your husband did the same thing to me. I lost everything. My retirement fund, my reputation, my marriage. I've spent 5 years rebuilding. And 3 months ago, I finally got access to the financial records that prove what he did. He pointed to a line on one of the statements. That's when I saw your name. Your daughter's name. And I realized he was doing it again. I felt the walls closing in. The cafe sounds the hiss of the espresso machine. The murmur of conversation faded to white noise. I'm an interior designer, I heard myself say, as if that explained anything. I design spaces. I don't understand offshore accounts and shell companies. Daniel handles all of our finances. I know, Mr. Rivera said gently. That's exactly what he counts on. I drove home in a daze, Mr. Rivera's folder burning like contraband on my passenger seat. Our house, the sprawling Mediterranean-style home overlooking the bay, suddenly looked different, like a set piece, like something that might not actually be mine. Daniel's Porsche was already in the driveway. He was home early, which never happened on Thursdays. I found him in his office, papers spread across his massive desk, his laptop open to what looked like architectural renderings. He looked up when I entered, and his face broke into that familiar, devastating smile that had convinced me to marry him 12 years ago. Hey, babe. You're home early, too. How was the Morrison project? Fine, I said, setting my purse down carefully. Daniel, what's happening tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Something flickered across his face, just for a microsecond. Then the smile was back. Tomorrow? Nothing I can think of. Why? The Harbor Point closing. What is it? He laughed, but it sounded forced. Oh, that. It's just a minor paperwork thing for one of the commercial properties. Nothing you need to worry about. Which commercial property? The one on Bayside Drive. The strip mall renovation. I told you about it months ago. He hadn't. I would have remembered. I remembered everything about our conversations because there were so few of them lately. Can I see the contracts? Daniel's smile finally faded. Sophia, what's going on? Why are you asking about this? I want to see the contracts for the Harbor Point closing. They're confidential, client privilege. I'm your wife, and this is my business. We stared at each other across his desk, and I saw it then. The calculation in his eyes, the way he was already 3 steps ahead, planning his next move. I ran into Mr. Rivera today, I said quietly. Daniel went very still. Rivera? He's in Arizona. He's in town. And he had some interesting things to tell me about offshore accounts, about shell companies, about what happened to his retirement fund 5 years ago. My husband stood up slowly, his hands flat on the desk. That man is bitter and delusional. He made bad investments and blamed me for his failures. I built him up, gave him opportunities, and he squandered them. Whatever he told you is a lie. Then show me the accounts. Show me the Harbor Point contracts. Show me that Lily's trust fund is still intact. Lily's trust fund? Daniel's laugh was harsh now. Of course it's intact. What kind of father do you think I am? I don't know anymore, I whispered. Show me. He grabbed his laptop, snapped it shut. I don't have to prove anything to you. You're being paranoid and insulting. I have a conference call. He brushed past me, and I heard his office door lock from the outside. I stood there alone, surrounded by the leather furniture and expensive artwork, and realized I was standing in a crime scene. This wasn't paranoia. This was pattern recognition finally breaking through denial. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything I could see on his desk. Letterheads, post-it notes with account numbers, a business card for Coastal Development Partners LLC with a woman's name, Jessica Whitmore, partner. Then I called Mr. Rivera back. "I need help," I said when he answered. "I need to know everything." We met at his modest apartment across town. He'd prepared a presentation like he was pitching to investors, except the product was my husband's betrayal, documented in spreadsheets and bank transfers and property records. 5 years ago, Mr. Rivera began, Daniel and I were partners in Rivera Stone Development. We just landed the Parkside Towers project, $12 million in construction contracts. I put in my retirement savings as my share of the investment. Daniel was supposed to match it. He pulled up a bank statement. He didn't. Instead, he created a shell company, Coastal Development Partners. He funneled the Parkside money through it, paid himself consulting fees, and when the project ran into zoning issues, the company declared bankruptcy. I lost everything. Daniel walked away clean. And Coastal Development Partners, I said slowly, still exists. He revived it 3 years ago. I found the paperwork when I finally got access to the court records from our lawsuit settlement. Want to guess who the partner is now? Jessica Whitmore. Smart woman. Mr. Rivera pulled up a photo from a society page. A brunette in her 30s, stunning, standing next to Daniel at some charity gala. The caption read, "Local developers Daniel Stone and Jessica Whitmore announce the Harbor Point Luxury Marina project." I felt something crack inside my chest. How long? The business partnership or the affair? Business started 3 years ago, the affair. I found hotel receipts going back 2.5 years in the discovery documents. I'm sorry. I should have cried. I should have raged. Instead, I felt my mind go crystal clear, the way it did when I was solving a complex design problem. What happens at tomorrow's closing? Mr. Rivera pulled up another document. Daniel sells the Harbor Point property, which he bought using a mortgage against your house, to Coastal Development Partners for $800,000. That money gets wired to an offshore account in the Caymans. Then Coastal immediately flips the property to a Chinese investment group for $3.2 million. That profit gets split between Daniel and Jessica, laundered through various LLCs, and by the time anyone notices, it's untraceable. And our house? Foreclosed within 6 months when he stops making payments on the mortgage you don't know exists. You'll find out when the bank notice comes. And Lily's trust fund? He showed me the transaction. $200,000, transferred to Coastal Development operating account 8 months ago. Memo line, investment opportunity. My daughter's college fund. Her future. Gone. There's more, Mr. Rivera said quietly. Jessica Whitmore doesn't know you exist. Daniel told her he's divorced. She thinks she's his business partner and girlfriend, not his mistress and accomplice. I looked at this man who had every reason to watch me drown in the same waters that had nearly killed him. Why are you doing this? You could just let it happen. Get revenge by watching him destroy another family. Because that's not revenge, he said. That's just becoming him. And besides, he smiled sadly, I had a daughter once too. She stopped speaking to me after I lost everything and her mother left. If I can stop another little girl from going through that, maybe I can sleep at night again. I went home and did something I'd never done before. I logged into Daniel's computer using the password I'd seen him type 1,000 times. He'd never changed it because he'd never thought I'd look. I was wrong about not understanding finances. I understood numbers. I understood patterns. And as an interior designer, I understood something else. Every space tells a story. Every detail reveals something about the people who created it. Daniel's digital files were immaculate, organized, color-coded. The Harbor Point folder alone contained 200 documents. I couldn't understand all of them, but I understood enough. Property surveys with my renderings attached. My designs, my work, listed under J. Whitmore Design Services. Every penthouse layout, every common area concept, every material specification I'd created over the past 2 years credited to his mistress. There was an email thread between Daniel and Jessica. I opened it, and each message was a small knife. Can't wait for Harbor Point to close. Then we can finally take that trip to Belize. Once this goes through, we're set. No more sneaking around. No more complications. Have you told her yet? Soon. After the closing. Clean break. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found something else, a folder labeled Personal DTS. Inside were documents for apartment leases, Mercedes payments, credit cards I'd never seen, all in Daniel's name, with a Bayside address I didn't recognize. He had a whole separate life, a full financial ecosystem that existed parallel to ours. Invisible, parasitic. My phone buzzed. Mr. Rivera, I found someone who can help. Forensic accountant, former FBI. She's willing to look at everything if you can get her the files. I have them, I said. All of them. Her name was Linda Chen, and she met me at a law office the next morning at 7 a.m., 3 hours before the Harbor Point closing. She was 50-something, sharp-eyed, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every financial crime imaginable. I handed her a flash drive with everything I'd copied. She spent 2 hours reviewing files while I drank bad coffee and watched the clock. Mr. Rivera sat beside me, silent support in a suit that had seen better days. At 9:30, Linda looked up. This is prosecutable. Wire fraud, mortgage fraud, identity theft. He forged your signature on the house documents. I can have an injunction on the closing in 20 minutes. But Sophia, you need to decide. Once we do this, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. His business is over. This will be public and ugly. I thought about Lily, 11 years old, who still believed her father hung the moon. I thought about the life I'd built, the carefully decorated rooms of our carefully decorated existence. Then I thought about Mr. Rivera's daughter, who wouldn't speak to him, about Jessica Whitmore, who thought she was building a future with a single man, about the next woman Daniel would do this to after us. Make the call, I said. The Harbor Point closing didn't happen. Instead, Daniel, Jessica, and their lawyers walked into a conference room to find 2 FBI agents and a court order freezing all assets related to Coastal Development Partners. I wasn't there. I was at Daniel's Bayside apartment, the one I'd found in his files with a locksmith and a police officer, executing my legal right to secure marital property. The apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Modern, minimal, a second life in chrome and glass. There were photos of Daniel and Jessica on the mantel, vacation pictures from places we'd never been, her clothes in the closet next to his suits. In the home office, I found what I needed. The original contracts for every project I'd worked on for the past 3 years. My designs, my concepts, all prepared under Whitmore Design Services. Daniel had been stealing my work and giving Jessica credit, building her portfolio while I worked from our home office, thinking I was supporting my husband's business. My phone rang. Daniel, what have you done? His voice shook with rage. The FBI? You called the FBI on me? No, I said calmly. I gave a forensic accountant access to your files. She called the FBI. There's a difference. Sophia, listen to me. This is a misunderstanding. Rivera poisoned your mind. He's setting me up because he's still angry about you stealing his retirement fund? Yes, he told me. He also showed me how you did it, the same way you tried to do it to me. Silence. Then, where are you? Your apartment. Nice place. Jessica has good taste, although most of the design work is actually mine, so I guess I should take that as a compliment. You can't be there. That's private property. It's marital property, purchased with marital funds, during our marriage. My lawyer was very clear about that. Sophia, his voice changed, became the soft, persuasive tone I knew so well. Baby, come home. Let's talk about this. Whatever you think is happening, I can explain. We can fix this. Think about Lily. I'm thinking about Lily. I'm thinking about how her trust fund is gone, how you stole her future to finance your affair. I'm thinking about what kind of man does that to his own daughter. I borrowed it. It was an investment. I was going to pay it back with interest. If you hadn't ruined the closing where you were going to wire $800,000 to the Caymans, that closing? He hung up. I sat in his other life's living room and waited. An hour later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Mrs. Stone? This is Jessica Whitmore. I think we need to talk. We met at a coffee shop in neutral territory. Jessica was even more beautiful in person, polished and professional in a way that made me feel every one of my 42 years. She sat down across from me, and I saw her hands were shaking. "He's married to you," she said without preamble. "This whole time, 3 years, he's been married to you." "Yes. He told me he was divorced, that it was finalized before we met. He showed me papers. He's good at paperwork. That's kind of his thing." Jessica laughed, but it sounded broken. "I'm going to lose everything. My license, my reputation, my business." The FBI agent explained very clearly what happens to people who participate in mortgage fraud, even unknowingly. I could have enjoyed this. I could have let her drown. But Mr. Rivera's words echoed in my head. "That's not revenge. That's just becoming him." "Did you know about Lily's trust fund?" I asked. "What trust fund?" "My daughter's college fund. $200,000. It was transferred to Coastal Development 8 months ago. Daniel told me it was an investment." Jessica's face went pale. "The operating account injection. He said it was from his personal savings. We needed it for the architect deposits on Harbor Point." She looked up at me. "Your daughter. God. He used your daughter's money for our project." "Did you know about the mortgage on my house?" "No. He said the Harbor Point down payment came from his portfolio liquidation." "I never saw the actual source documents," he said. His accountant handled it. "We sat there, 2 women staring at each other across the wreckage of the same man's lies." "I have something you should see," I said, and pulled out my laptop. I showed her the files, the emails where Daniel discussed keeping both relationships going, the financial records showing he'd been systematically stealing from both of us. The plans for after Harbor Point closed the trip to Belize, where he'd presumably tell her some new lie about why he needed to disappear for a while. "He was going to leave both of you," Jessica said slowly. "Take the money and vanish." "I think so. Eventually, once he'd extracted everything he could." Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The design work, all those residential projects I thought I'd won on my own merit. That was you?" "Most of it. Daniel would bring me the client briefs. I'd create the concepts. He'd present them under your name." "Why would he do that?" "Because I wouldn't leave the house to do client meetings. I was home with Lily, so he needed a face for the business, someone young and beautiful and credible, someone he could control." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was building something. I thought we were partners." "We are," I said, "just not the way either of us thought." The next weeks were chaos. Daniel was arrested for mortgage fraud and wire fraud. The investigation expanded when they found 3 other projects where he'd used similar schemes. Mr. Rivera wasn't his only victim, just the first one who'd kept digging. Jessica cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. She testified about every document Daniel had falsified, every signature he'd forged, every lie he'd told. In the process, she handed over evidence of 2 other women he'd been stringing along with similar promises. My house wasn't foreclosed because the mortgage was fraudulent. Daniel had forged my signature. It was painful, expensive, and public, but in the end, I kept my home. Lily's trust fund took longer. The money had been spent, dispersed, laundered, but Daniel had other assets, property, investments, a boat I'd never known about. It all got liquidated. We recovered $170,000 of the original $200,000. Not everything, but enough. I sat Lily down and told her the truth. Not all of it, she was 11, but enough. Her father had made bad choices. He'd hurt people. We were going to be okay, but things were going to be different. "Is Daddy going to jail?" she asked. "Yes." "For how long?" "A long time." She was quiet, processing. Then, "Are you okay, Mom?" And I realized I was. Not happy, not undamaged, but okay. "Yeah, baby, I am." Jessica called me 6 months after Daniel's sentencing. 7 years in federal prison, reduced from 12 because he took a plea deal. "I'm leaving town," she said, "starting over somewhere where nobody knows my name. I wanted to say goodbye, and thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For not letting me drown with him." "You could have. You had every right to." "Mr. Rivera taught me something," I said. "Revenge isn't watching someone else suffer. It's refusing to let their actions turn you into them." "How is he?" "Good. Actually, he's great. I hired him." You what? I smiled. I started my own design firm, Sophia Chen Interiors. I needed someone who understood contracts, finances, client relations, someone I could trust. He's my business manager now. Turns out we make a good team. That's amazing. Jessica, I said, you're a good designer. The work you did after Daniel was arrested, the projects you actually did yourself, they're excellent. Don't let him steal that from you too. I won't, she said quietly. You too. A year after everything fell apart, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten wary of unknown callers during the investigation, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Stone? A young woman's voice. My name is Maya Rivera. I'm Mr. Rivera's daughter. My heart skipped. Maya. Yes, your father has told me about you. He has? She sounded surprised. We haven't spoken in 5 years, not since the divorce and bankruptcy and everything. I was angry. I thought he was reckless. I thought he destroyed our family. And now? Now I know what really happened. The FBI investigation into Daniel Stone, it mentioned my father's case. I read the court documents. Everything he said was true. He wasn't reckless. He was stolen from. Her voice cracked. I blamed him for 5 years for something that wasn't his fault. Have you called him? I asked gently. I'm scared. I was so cruel to him. I said terrible things. What if he won't forgive me? Maya, I said, he has a photo of you on his desk. You're in a graduation gown. He looks at it every single day. She was crying now. Could you give me his number? I don't even know if it's the same one. I did better than that. I told her to come to the office the next day at 10 a.m. I told Mr. Rivera I needed him to meet with a potential new client. I didn't tell him who. I watched from my office doorway when Maya walked in. Mr. Rivera looked up from his desk, and his face went through every emotion at once. Shock, disbelief, hope, fear. Dad, Maya whispered. He stood slowly, like he was afraid she'd disappear. Maya? She ran to him, just crashed into him like she was 12 years old instead of 27. And Mr. Rivera, this dignified man who'd helped me dismantle my husband's criminal empire with calm precision, broke down sobbing in his daughter's arms. I closed my office door and gave them privacy. Some moments are too sacred to witness. That evening, I came home to find Lily in the kitchen, working on homework at the table. Our table. In our house. Still ours. How was school? I asked. Good. We started the college prep unit in social studies. Miss Henderson asked us where we want to go. My heart clenched. The trust fund was rebuilt, but it was still smaller than before. And where do you want to go? Lily looked up at me with those serious eyes that were so much older than 11. I want to go wherever you didn't get to go, Mom. You told me once you wanted to study architecture, but you got married instead. I want to study architecture. Is that okay? I sat down next to her, tears blurring my vision. That's more than okay, baby. That's perfect. Will there be enough money? There will be enough money. I promise. And there would be. Because I had clients now. Real clients, who knew my name, who requested me specifically, because I had a business partner I could trust, because I had learned to read contracts and balance sheets and warning signs, because Mr. Rivera had taken a risk to save me, and I'd taken a risk to save Jessica, and Jessica had taken a risk to tell the truth, and Maya had taken a risk to forgive. And all those risks, all those acts of choosing not to become the bitterness that had been done to us, they had built something new. Not a perfect life, not an undamaged one, but a real one, built on truth instead of lies, on partnership instead of parasitism, on the radical notion that the opposite of revenge isn't letting someone hurt you, it's refusing to hurt the next person in line. 3 years later, I attended Daniel's parole hearing. I didn't speak for him or against him. I simply listened as he told the board he'd learned his lesson, that he was a changed man, that he wanted a chance to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. The parole was denied. 4 more years. Afterward, Lily asked me if I was happy about that. I'm not happy or sad, I told her honestly. I'm just grateful we're not waiting for him anymore. We're not planning around him or hoping he'll change. We're just living. That's enough. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? I thought about that. Forgiveness isn't about him. It's about me deciding I don't want to carry anger around anymore. So yes, eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean ever letting him hurt us again. Lily nodded, understanding in a way that broke my heart a little. She'd learned too young that love wasn't enough. That trust had to be earned and could be destroyed. But she'd also learned something else, that you could survive betrayal, that you could rebuild, that you could be both wounded and whole at the same time. Last month, I received an invitation to a gallery opening, Rivera Chen Design Collaborative, 3 years of creating space. Mr. Rivera and I had decided to make it official, to combine our names and our talents into something bigger than either of us alone. The gallery showed photos of our projects, homes we'd restored, businesses we'd helped build, lives we'd helped rebuild, in a way, by creating beautiful functional spaces out of ruins. Jessica came to the opening. She'd moved back to town, started her own firm, and we'd become something between colleagues and friends. She brought her new partner, a woman who made her laugh, who knew her history and loved her anyway. Maya came with her father and her fiancé, and announced they were expecting a baby in 6 months. Mr. Rivera was going to be a grandfather. He cried when she told him, and this time they were only happy tears. Lily came in her first-choice college acceptance letter in her pocket, full scholarship to study architecture. She'd gotten in on merit, on her portfolio, on her own dreams that had nothing to do with her father's money, or her father's crimes, or her father's absence. We stood together in that gallery, all of us survivors and witnesses and rebuilders, and I thought about that morning in the cafe when Mr. Rivera slid that folder across the table and gave me a choice. I could ignore it. I could confront Daniel privately and let him talk his way out of it. I could take what he'd leave me and walk away quietly. Or I could look. I chose to look. And everything that came after, the pain and the exposure and the rebuilding, all of it started with that choice. "Thank you," I said quietly to Mr. Rivera as we looked at the gallery of our work. "For what?" "For stopping me at that cafe. For taking the risk that I'd listen." He smiled. "Thank you for proving that not everyone becomes what's done to them, that we can break the cycle." And that, I thought, was the real story. Not the betrayal, not the revenge, but the moment when you're given the truth and you choose to look at it, no matter how much it costs. Because the opposite of being deceived isn't being suspicious of everyone. It's being brave enough to see clearly, and wise enough to act on what you see, and strong enough to build something new from the ruins of what you lost. I checked the offshore accounts. I found out the truth, and I took back my life. Not the life I thought I had, but the life I actually deserved.